They left her in the snow to die, with my great-grandson still in her womb. Some secrets are buried in winter. Some are born from it. I am the last keeper of the Park bloodline, and I will tell you the truth they tried to erase. Our family was dying. No heirs, no future. Just empty halls and the smell of extinction. Then she arrived. A foreign woman. Wrong skin, wrong blood, wrong everything. But she carried the one thing that could save us, or destroy us completely. This is not a love story. This is a story of survival, of a woman thrown into a blizzard by a jealous bride, of a mafia boss who had to choose between honor and his unborn child, and of an old grandmother who broke every sacred rule to protect a bloodline that the world said didn't deserve to survive. Winter tried to kill us, but we are still here. The Park estate stood like a fortress in the Gangnam Hills, its black gates hiding centuries of power and violence. Inside the main house, Halmae-yoon sat in the ancestral room, surrounded by photographs of dead men. Her husband, her sons, her grandsons. All gone. All taken by the life they chose. Only Jin-woo remained. The old woman's hands trembled as she lit incense before the family altar. She was 83 years old, and she had seen empires rise and fall within Seoul's underworld. But nothing frightened her more than the silence in this house. No children's laughter. No grandchildren running through the halls. Just Jin-woo and his cold, beautiful bride, Mi-sun. The marriage had been arranged 3 years ago, a strategic alliance between the Park and Choi clans. Mi-sun was elegant, educated, perfect in every way, except one. She could not give them an heir. Halmae-yoon had watched the younger woman's face grow harder each month, each failed hope, each whispered rumor from the other families. The Park bloodline dies with Jin-woo. They have no future. They are already ghosts. The grandmother knew what was coming. In their world, a barren alliance was worse than no alliance at all. Weakness invited war. Jin-woo entered the room without knocking, as was his way. He was 35, sharp-featured, with eyes that had seen too much death too young. He wore a black suit like armor, and he moved through the world like a blade, precise, cold, lethal. "Grandmother," he said, bowing slightly. "You asked for me." "Sit," Halmae-yoon commanded. He obeyed. Even the most dangerous man in Seoul knew better than to disobey his grandmother. She poured him tea with steady hands. "The Lee family made inquiries today about your succession." Jin-woo's jaw tightened. "They can inquire all they want. It's none of their business. It becomes their business when they see opportunity." Halmae-yoon's voice was soft, but it carried the weight of centuries. A clan without heirs is a clan already dead. The other families are watching Jin-woo, waiting. "Mi-sun and I are trying, for 3 years." The old woman set down her cup. "The doctors have said it's impossible. We both know this." Silence filled the room like smoke. Jin-woo stared at his hands. Hands that had killed. Hands that had built an empire. Hands that could not create the one thing that mattered. "What would you have me do, grandmother? Divorce her? Take a mistress?" The Choi family would see it as an insult. "We'd have war before winter ends." Halmae-yoon smiled, but it was not a warm smile. "There are old ways, Jin-woo. Ways that don't require anyone's permission. Ways that have kept bloodlines alive for 1,000 years when the world tried to end them. I won't dishonor my wife." "Honor," the grandmother repeated, as if tasting the word. "You speak of honor while our family dies. Your grandfather would spit on your honor if he knew it cost him his legacy." Jin-woo stood abruptly. "I am not my grandfather." "No," Halmae-yoon agreed. "You are softer, kinder. That is why I worry." He left without another word, his footsteps echoing through the empty halls. The old woman sat alone in the ancestral room, surrounded by the ghosts of her family. She closed her eyes and made a decision that would change everything. Sometimes, she thought, the bloodline must be saved by those willing to sin for it. She reached for her phone and made a call. "I need a private nurse," she said. "Someone from outside our world, someone no one will notice. 3 days later, Adana arrived at the park estate. A tree that bears no fruit will be cut down. But sometimes, the gardener plants a seed in secret, where no one can see it growing. Adana had come to Seoul 6 months ago on a nursing contract, escaping a life she didn't want to talk about. She was 28, tall and graceful, with dark skin that drew stares in the homogeneous streets of Gangnam. She'd learned to keep her head down, to smile politely, to pretend she didn't hear the whispers. When the employment agency offered her a private position, caring for an elderly woman in a wealthy home, she didn't ask too many questions. The pay was extraordinary, the hours were reasonable, and most importantly, it was away from the hospital where her co-workers treated her like an exotic curiosity. She didn't know she was walking into the heart of Seoul's most dangerous family. Halmae Yoon greeted her personally at the estate gates, which should have been Adana's first warning. In houses like this, the lady of the manor didn't greet the help. "You are Adana," the old woman said, studying her with eyes that seemed to see everything. "Yes, ma'am. I'm here to... I know why you're here. Follow me." The estate was beautiful and terrifying. Black marble floors, jade sculptures, walls covered in calligraphy that Adana couldn't read, and everywhere, the feeling of being watched. Halmae Yoon's private quarters were in the west wing, away from the main house. The old woman moved slowly, but with absolute purpose, like a queen in exile. "Your duties are simple," she explained. "You will help me with my medications, prepare my meals, keep me company. You will not speak to anyone else in this house unless I give you permission. You will not ask questions about our family. Do you understand?" Adana nodded, though something about the arrangement made her uneasy. "Good. You may start tomorrow." But that first night, Adana met Jin-woo. She'd gotten lost trying to find the kitchen. The estate was a maze, and ended up in the garden. It was past midnight and snow was falling softly. She thought she was alone. Then she saw him. Jin-woo stood by the frozen pond, smoking a cigarette, his breath visible in the cold air. He wore no coat despite the temperature, as if he didn't feel the cold, or didn't care. Adana froze, unsure whether to speak or retreat. He turned and saw her. For a moment, neither of them moved. "You're the new nurse," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes. I'm sorry, I got lost. The kitchen is that way." He pointed with his cigarette. "You should go inside. It's too cold out here. You're out here." Something like amusement flickered in his eyes. "I'm used to the cold." Adana should have left, should have bowed politely and hurried away. But something about the loneliness in his posture, the way he stood like a man bearing the weight of the world, made her stay. "Your grandmother seems very kind," she offered. Jin-woo laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "My grandmother is many things. Kind is not one of them." "Then why does she need a nurse?" He studied her for a long moment. "Maybe she's lonely. Maybe she wants someone to talk to, who doesn't know all our family's sins." "And what are your family's sins?" "Too many to count." He dropped the cigarette and crushed it under his heel. "Go inside, Adana. This isn't a place for someone like you." But over the following weeks, Adana kept finding herself in that garden. And Jin-woo kept being there, as if he was waiting. They talked about small things at first. The weather, the city, her home in Africa. He never asked why she'd left, and she never asked what business he was in. They existed in a strange, suspended bubble where the rest of the world didn't matter. Halmae Yoon watched it all from her window and smiled. The old woman knew what she was doing. She'd seen the way Jin-woo looked at Adana, not with lust, but with something deeper. Recognition, as if he'd found something he didn't know he was missing. And she'd seen the way Adana looked back. Mi-sun, Jin-woo's bride, noticed too. She saw them talking in the garden one evening and felt something dark and venomous coil in her chest. She'd given 3 years of her life to this marriage, endured the humiliation of her barrenness, and now this foreign woman dared to look at her husband? Mi-sun said nothing, but she began to watch Adana the way a snake watches a mouse. 1 month after Adana arrived, Jinwoo came to her room in the West Wing. It was late. Halmae-yoon was asleep. The house was silent. Adana opened her door and found him standing there, looking lost in a way that broke her heart. "I shouldn't be here," he said. "Then why are you?" "Because I can't stop thinking about you." What happened next was inevitable. Two lonely people finding solace in each other's arms. It was tender and desperate, and completely forbidden. When it was over, Jinwoo held her and whispered, "This can never happen again." But it did. Again and again through the long winter nights. And Halmae-yoon, lying awake in her room, listened to the sound of footsteps in the hallway and prayed that her dangerous gamble would work. 2 months later, Adana realized she was pregnant. She told Halmae-yoon first, terrified of what it meant. The old woman took her hands and smiled, a genuine, joyful smile. "The bloodline survives," she whispered. "You have saved us all." But when Mi-sun discovered the truth, salvation turned to ash. When the fox smells blood in the henhouse, it does not attack immediately. It waits until the farmer looks away. Mi-sun found out on a Tuesday. She'd grown suspicious of the way Jinwoo disappeared into the West Wing, the way Halmae-yoon had become suddenly protective of the African nurse. So she did what any woman in her position would do. She paid the housekeeper to spy. The report came back in a sealed envelope. The foreign woman is pregnant, 3 months along. Mi-sun sat in her pristine bedroom, surrounded by her expensive things, and felt her entire world collapse into rage. She had given everything to this marriage, her youth, her dignity, her hope. She had endured the pitying looks of the other wives, the whispered jokes about her empty womb, the knowledge that she was failing the one duty she'd been given. And now, this nobody, this outsider, had done what Mi-sun could not. That night, Mi-sun waited until Jinwoo was at a business meeting. She waited until Halmae-yoon had taken her evening medication and fallen into deep sleep. Then she went to Adana's room. "Get up," Mi-sun said coldly. "We need to talk." Adana, already in bed, sat up slowly. Her hand went instinctively to her stomach. "Mrs. Park, don't call me that." Mi-sun's voice was ice. "Get dressed. We're going for a drive. It's midnight." I said, "Get dressed." Something in Mi-sun's eyes told Adana this wasn't a request. Fear crawled up her spine, but she obeyed. They drove in silence through the snowy streets, heading north toward the mountains. Adana's hands trembled in her lap. "Where are we going?" Mi-sun didn't answer. She just drove, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. They stopped at an empty road, miles from anywhere. Snow fell heavily, covering the world in white silence. "Get out," Mi-sun commanded. "What? No, please. Get out." Adana stumbled out of the car, her thin coat already inadequate against the bitter cold. She was barefoot. She hadn't had time to put on shoes. Mi-sun stood in front of her, hatred burning in her eyes. "Did you think you could steal my life? Come into my home and take what's mine? I never meant—" "I don't care what you meant." Mi-sun's voice shook. "You're carrying his child, the child I can never give him. Do you know what that makes you? It makes you the woman who destroyed me. Please," Adana begged, tears freezing on her cheeks. "I'm pregnant. You can't leave me here." "Can I?" Mi-sun smiled, and it was the cruelest thing Adana had ever seen. "You're nothing. No family here, no papers, no one will even look for you. You'll freeze out here, and your bastard child will freeze with you." She got back in the car. "Please!" Adana screamed, running after the vehicle. But Mi-sun was already driving away, taillights disappearing into the storm. Adana stood alone in the snow, in the dark, miles from anywhere. She tried to walk, but her bare feet went numb within minutes. The cold was knife-sharp, cutting through her clothes, her skin, her hope. She stumbled forward, one hand on her belly, whispering apologies to the child she was going to fail. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have protected you better." She collapsed after 20 minutes, unable to feel her legs. Snow covered her like a burial shroud. She thought of her mother in Kenya. She thought of Jinwoo. She thought of the baby who would never be born. Forgive me. She prayed to a god who seemed very far away. Then darkness took her. Jinwoo returned home at 2 a.m. to find Halmae-yoon awake and frantic. "She's gone," the old woman said, her voice cracking. "Adana is gone. Her room is empty. Her coat is missing." Cold dread flooded Jinwoo's veins. "Where's Misun?" "I don't know. Her car is gone too." He didn't need to ask any more questions. He knew. Jinwoo ran to his own car, his phone already calling his men. "Search the northern roads, now, every inch. Find her." He drove like a man possessed, following the only route Misun would have taken. The snow was falling so hard he could barely see, but he didn't slow down. Please, he prayed to ancestors he'd never believed in. Please don't let me be too late. He found her 3 hours later, a dark shape half buried in white. Jinwoo fell to his knees beside her, pulling her frozen body into his arms. Her skin was blue. Her pulse was barely there. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no. Adana, wake up. Please wake up." He wrapped her in his coat, carried her to the car, turned the heat to maximum. His hands were shaking as he called for a doctor, not a hospital, too many questions, a private physician loyal to the family. Adana's eyes fluttered open for just a moment.
Before you continue, if this story touched something in you, you should know this is only the beginning. The complete version includes 30 full audio stories, more than 30 hours of uninterrupted listening. No ads, no cuts, no distractions. Scan the QR code on your screen, or tap the link in the pinned comment to continue listening right now.
"The baby," she whispered. "Don't talk. Save your strength. Is the baby—" "I don't know." Jinwoo's voice broke. "But you're alive. That's what matters." She closed her eyes again, and Jinwoo drove through the storm with a woman he barely knew, a child he'd never planned for, and a rage that threatened to burn down his entire world. When they reached the estate, Halmae-yoon was waiting with the doctor. They worked through the night. Adana's core temperature was dangerously low. Hypothermia, frostbite on her feet. But the baby had survived. At dawn, the doctor emerged and gave Jinwoo the news. "She'll live. The child is still strong, but she was minutes from death. Minutes." Jinwoo went to Misun's room. His bride sat calmly at her vanity, brushing her hair as if nothing had happened. "Did you find her?" Misun asked casually. Jinwoo's hands clenched into fists. Every instinct screamed at him to hurt her the way she'd hurt Adana. But he was not his father. He was not a man who struck women. Instead, he spoke with a coldness that made Misun's blood freeze. "You tried to kill my child. I tried to protect my marriage. Your marriage is over. Pack your things. You have until noon to leave this house. If you're still here after that, I won't be responsible for what happens." Misun's facade finally cracked. "You can't divorce me. My family will be too busy managing the scandal of what you've done to start a war. I have witnesses. I have evidence. If they want to fight, they'll lose." He turned to leave. "She's a nobody," Misun screamed. "A foreign whore. This child is a bastard." Jinwoo stopped at the door. "This child is my heir, and I will kill anyone who threatens them, including you." The door closed behind him with terrible finality. Halmae-yoon found him sitting beside Adana's bed, holding her bandaged hand. "You love her," the old woman said softly. Jinwoo didn't answer for a long time. Then, "I don't know what I feel, but she's carrying my child. That makes her family. And we protect family." "Yes," Halmae-yoon agreed. "We do." But protecting family, they both knew, would be harder than either of them imagined. Because word was already spreading through Seoul's underworld. Jinwoo Park has an heir, and the mother is a foreign woman. The enemies began to circle. The winter that does not kill you merely teaches your enemies how to find you when you're weak. The news spread through Seoul's underworld like poison in water. Jinwoo Park's mistress is pregnant. A foreign woman, an outsider. The air is tainted. Within 48 hours, the vultures began to circle. The Lee family called for a council meeting. The Choi family, Mi-sun's relatives, demanded compensation for the insult. Smaller clans saw opportunity in the chaos, whispering that perhaps the Park legacy had grown too weak to defend itself. Halmae-yoon sat in the ancestral room, listening to the threats come in through phone calls, messages, emissaries at the gate. She had expected this. War always came when bloodlines shifted. Jinwoo wanted to face them head-on, to crush anyone who dared question his authority. But the old woman knew better. "We cannot win through violence alone," she told him. "Not this time. They will use your anger against you. They will call you impulsive, unstable, unfit to lead. Then what do you suggest?" Jinwoo's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. "That I hide? Apologize?" "No." Halmae-yoon's eyes glinted like steel. "We protect what matters. And we make them understand the cost of attacking us." The grandmother moved Adana in the middle of the night. The main estate was too visible, too vulnerable. So Halmae-yoon used resources Jinwoo didn't even know she had. A mountain property, 3 hours outside Seoul, hidden in forests so dense that even satellites couldn't see through them. It was an old safe house, built generations ago for exactly this purpose, protecting what the family couldn't afford to lose. Adana, still recovering from her ordeal in the snow, protested weakly. "I don't want to be a burden. Maybe I should just go home." "Home." Halmae-yoon's voice was gentle but firm. "Child, you are carrying the future of this family. There is no home safer than the one we build around you." 4 of Jinwoo's most trusted men went with them. Not just guards, warriors who had proven their loyalty with blood. The estate in the mountains was smaller, simpler, but beautiful in its isolation. Wood and stone, heated floors, windows that overlooked endless forest. Adana had her own wing, a doctor on call, everything she needed. But she was a prisoner, even if her cage was gilded. Halmae-yoon stayed with her, refusing to leave despite her age. "Someone must keep you company," the old woman said. "And someone must teach you what it means to be part of this family." They spent the long winter days together. Halmae-yoon taught Adana Korean, slowly, patiently. Taught her about the Park family history, the traditions, the weight of the name the child would carry. "They will hate your son," Halmae-yoon said one evening as they sat by the fire. "They will call him bastard, outsider, impure." Adana's hand went to her growing belly. "Then maybe he shouldn't be part of this world. It's too late for that." The old woman's voice was sad but certain. "The moment you became pregnant, your child's fate was sealed. He will either lead this family, or he will die trying to escape it. That's horrible. That is reality." Meanwhile, in Seoul, Jinwoo was fighting a different kind of war. The council meeting was held in a neutral location, an old restaurant in Gangnam that had witnessed decades of underworld negotiations. 15 family heads sat around a long table, their faces hard with judgment. The Lee patriarch spoke first. "Jinwoo Park, you have dishonored your marriage, disgraced your alliance with the Choi family, and produced an illegitimate heir with foreign blood. The council must decide if you are still fit to lead." Jinwoo stood alone at the head of the table. No allies, no support, just him and his conviction. "My marriage to Mi-sun was a business arrangement," he said coldly. "She could not provide an heir. I did what was necessary to ensure my family's survival. That is not dishonor. That is duty." "Duty?" The Choi representative slammed his hand on the table. "You humiliated my niece. You threw her aside for a foreign whore." Jinwoo's eyes turned to ice. "Your niece tried to murder my unborn child. I have witnesses. I have evidence. If you want to discuss dishonor, let's start there." Shocked silence. The Lee patriarch leaned forward. "You have proof of this?" "I do. Mi-sun took Adana into the mountains and abandoned her in a blizzard. She left her to freeze to death. If I hadn't found her in time, both she and my heir would be dead." The Choi representative's face went pale. Attempted murder was a serious crime, even in their world. It showed instability, lack of control, qualities that made you a liability. Even so, another family head spoke up. The child is half foreign. This violates tradition. How can we accept a mixed-blood heir to the Park legacy? Jinwoo smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. Which of you has pure blood? Truly? How many of your ancestors married Korean? How many of you have Chinese blood, Japanese blood, Russian blood from the Northern Territories? We are criminals, not royalty. We survive by being strong, not pure. Murmurs around the table. He'd struck a nerve. My child will be strong, Jinwoo continued. He will be smart, ruthless, and capable. That is what matters, not the color of his mother's skin. The Lee patriarch studied him for a long moment. Then, you speak well, Jinwoo Park. But words are easy. We need assurance that this situation won't weaken your position, won't make you vulnerable. Then test me, Jinwoo said simply. Send your challenges. Send your threats. See if I'm weak. It was a dangerous gamble, but it was the only move he had. The council voted, 12-3 in Jinwoo's favor. He was allowed to keep his seat, his territory, his power. But the message was clear. One mistake, one sign of weakness, and they would tear him apart. Jinwoo left the restaurant and drove straight to the mountains. He found Adana in the garden, wrapped in blankets, watching snow fall. She was 6 months pregnant now, her belly round and obvious. She looked up when she heard his footsteps. Did they accept it? The baby? They accepted that I won't give him up. Jinwoo sat beside her. That's not the same thing. I'm sorry I've caused so much trouble. You haven't caused anything. I did this. I take responsibility. Adana looked at him, really looked at him. This man who had touched her in the dark, who had saved her from freezing, who was now fighting an entire criminal empire to protect their child. Do you love me? She asked quietly. Jinwoo was silent for a long time. I don't know, he finally admitted. I don't know what love is. I know duty. I know loyalty. I know that when I thought you were dead, something inside me broke. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Adana nodded slowly. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was honest. And in that moment, she realized something. She didn't need him to love her. She needed him to protect their son. And that, at least, he was willing to do. Winter deepened. The threats continued, but Jinwoo met each one with calculated force. Not excessive violence, just enough to remind people that the Park family still had teeth. Halmei-yoon watched from the mountains and smiled. Her grandson was learning. Finally. When wolves attack a wounded deer, they expect an easy kill. They forget that a mother protecting her young becomes the most dangerous creature in the forest. The child was born on the first day of spring. Adana's labor lasted 14 hours. Halmei-yoon stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, whispering encouragement in Korean that Adana barely understood but felt in her bones. Jinwoo paced outside the room like a caged animal. He'd faced armed enemies without fear, but the sound of Adana's screams unmade him. When the doctor finally emerged, Jinwoo couldn't speak. A son, the doctor said, smiling. Healthy, strong lungs. Jinwoo went into the room and saw Adana, exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in white cloth. The baby had Adana's dark skin and Jinwoo's sharp features, a perfect blend of two worlds. He's beautiful, Adana whispered. Jinwoo touched his son's tiny hand, and the baby's fingers wrapped around his thumb with surprising strength. Something shifted in Jinwoo's chest. Something huge and terrifying and wonderful. This was his child, his blood, his responsibility, and he would burn down the world to keep him safe. Halmei-yoon stood in the doorway, tears running down her ancient face. The bloodline survives, she whispered. After all these years, it survives. They named him Min Jun Park. Min for clever, Jun for talented. a name that carried hope and expectation in equal measure. But naming him was the easy part. 3 weeks after Minjun's birth, the real test came. An assassin tried to enter the mountain estate. He was good. Very good. He'd bypassed the perimeter guards, disabled the cameras, and made it all the way to the main house before one of Jinwoo's men caught him. They brought him to Jinwoo, bound and bleeding but defiant. "Who sent you?" Jinwoo asked calmly. The assassin spat blood. "Does it matter? Today it's me. Tomorrow it'll be someone else. That half-breed bastard of yours will never be safe." Jinwoo could have killed him. Should have killed him. But Halmei-yoon had taught him something in recent months. Sometimes the strongest message isn't violence. It's mercy. Jinwoo let the assassin go. But before he released him, Jinwoo made sure the man saw something. He took him to the nursery, showed him Minjun sleeping peacefully in his crib, let him see Adana singing a lullaby in Swahili, her voice soft and full of love. Let him see Halmei-yoon knitting tiny clothes with gnarled fingers. "Look carefully," Jinwoo said. "This is what you were sent to destroy. A child, a mother, an old woman. Is this worth your honor?" The assassin stared at the scene, and for the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Doubt. "Go back to whoever hired you," Jinwoo continued. "Tell them what you saw. Tell them I could have killed you, but I didn't. Tell them that if they want war over a baby, they'll have it. But they should ask themselves if that's really the battle they want to fight." The assassin left, shaken in a way that violence never could have achieved. Word of Jinwoo's mercy spread through the underworld. Some saw it as weakness, but others, the older bosses, the ones who'd seen too many wars, saw it as wisdom. A man who kills when insulted is predictable. A man who shows mercy when he could destroy you is dangerous in a different way. It meant he was thinking 3 moves ahead. The assassination attempts stopped. Not because people stopped hating Jinwoo's choice, but because they realized that killing a baby would make them look like monsters. And in their world, reputation mattered. Months passed. Minjun grew strong and healthy. He had his mother's laugh and his father's serious eyes. Halmei-yoon doted on him shamelessly, spoiling him in ways she'd never spoiled her own children. Adana slowly adapted to her new reality. She would never be Jinwoo's wife. He couldn't marry her without losing face completely. But she was the mother of his heir, and that gave her a strange kind of power. Jinwoo visited the mountain estate every week. At first, he came to see Minjun. But gradually, he found himself staying longer, talking to Adana, sharing pieces of himself he'd never shown anyone. One evening, as they watched Minjun sleep, Adana asked the question she'd been holding for months. What happens when he grows up? When he's old enough to understand what he is? Jinwoo was quiet for a long time. "I'll teach him to be strong, to be proud of both sides of himself, to never apologize for existing. And if your world rejects him, then I'll change the world." It was an impossible promise. But Adana saw the determination in his eyes and believed him. Halmei-yoon, listening from the hallway, smiled to herself. Her grandson had finally learned the most important lesson. True power wasn't about controlling others. It was about protecting what you loved, no matter the cost. The winter had tested them. The spring had brought new life. Now they just had to survive long enough to see Minjun grow. The strongest trees grow from seeds that fall in the harshest soil. But they only survive if someone guards them while they're still saplings. 5 years passed. Minjun Park grew into a beautiful child. Bright, curious, speaking 3 languages by the time he was 4. Korean from Halmei-yoon, English from his mother, and the language of silence from his father, who taught him to observe, to listen, to understand the world beneath the words. The mountain estate became a permanent home. Adana never returned to Seoul, and after a while, she stopped wanting to. The city had nearly killed her. The mountains had saved her. She and Jinwoo never married. But they built something stranger and more resilient than a traditional marriage. Partnership, respect, and yes, eventually, something that looked like love, though neither of them said the word often. Jinwoo split his time between Seoul and the mountains. In the city, he was the cold, calculating Mafia boss. In the forest, he was a father teaching his son to fish, to climb trees, to be brave. Halmae-yoon lived to see her great-grandson's 5th birthday. She died peacefully in her sleep one autumn night, a smile on her ancient face. They buried her in the Park family cemetery in Seoul, with full honors. Even the rival families came to pay respects. Whatever their differences, everyone acknowledged that Halmae-yoon had been a legend. At the funeral, the Lee patriarch approached Jinwoo. "Your grandmother was a formidable woman," he said. "She played a dangerous game with your son's birth. But she was right. The bloodline continues. That's what matters." Jinwoo bowed. "Thank you, Elder Lee." "Your boy." The old man hesitated. "Bring him to the city sometime. Let us meet him properly. It's time." It was an olive branch, an acknowledgement. Jinwoo brought Minjun to Seoul for the first time when he was 6 years old. The boy was nervous but excited, holding his mother's hand as they walked through the Park estate, the place where his story had begun, where his mother had almost died. Adana stood in the garden where she'd first met Jinwoo, and she felt like she was looking at a ghost of herself. That frightened young woman seemed so far away now. "Are you okay?" Jinwoo asked, noticing her expression. "I'm remembering," she said softly. "How scared I was. How lost. You're not lost anymore." "No." She squeezed his hand. "I'm not." They introduced Minjun to the family elders, to the allies, to the world Jinwoo had fought so hard to make safe for him. Some people stared at the boy's mixed features. Some whispered. But no one dared say anything cruel. Not with Jinwoo standing there like a wall of protective fury. Minjun handled it all with surprising grace. He bowed properly, spoke respectfully, showed none of the fear Adana had worried about. When it was over, Jinwoo knelt down to his son's level. "You did well today? Father, why do some people look at me strangely?" Jinwoo chose his words carefully. "Because you're different. And people fear what's different. But different doesn't mean less. It means you carry 2 legacies instead of 1. That makes you twice as strong." Minjun considered this. "Mother says I'm special because I have the best of both worlds. Your mother is wise. Are you and Mother going to get married?" Jinwoo glanced at Adana, who was watching from across the room. "Would you like that?" "I think so. It would make things simpler." Jinwoo laughed. A real laugh, rare and genuine. "Marriage doesn't make things simpler, Minjun. But I'll think about it." That night, after Minjun was asleep, Jinwoo found Adana on the balcony overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. "He asked if we're getting married," Jinwoo said. Adana smiled. "What did you tell him?" "That I'd think about it." "And have you?" Jinwoo was quiet for a moment. Then, "I've spent 6 years trying to protect you and our son, trying to prove to everyone that you belong here. But I've never asked what you actually want." "What do you mean? Do you want to marry me? Or have I trapped you in a life you never chose?" Adana turned to face him fully. "Jinwoo Park, I stopped being trapped the moment you pulled me out of that snow. Everything since then has been my choice, including loving you." It was the first time either of them had said it out loud.
If you stayed until the end, it's because this story stayed with you. What you heard here is just a fragment. The full experience lives in 30 complete audio stories, carefully told with every emotion, every secret, and every moment that couldn't be shared on YouTube. There are no ads, no interruptions, and you can listen anytime, anywhere, in total privacy. Scan the QR code on your screen now, or tap the link in the pinned comment, and discover what was never said.
Jinwoo pulled her close, and for once, the cold, controlled Mafia boss let himself be vulnerable. "I love you too," he whispered. I don't know when it happened, but it did. They married quietly, 6 months later. No grand ceremony, No political alliances. Just them, Minjun, and a small group of trusted friends in the mountain estate. It wasn't the life either of them had imagined, but it was theirs. The Park bloodline continued, stranger and stronger than anyone expected. Minjun grew up knowing both worlds, his mother's warmth and his father's steel. He learned to navigate between cultures, to be proud of his complexity. And when he was old enough, Jinwoo began teaching him what it meant to lead. Not through violence, but through wisdom. Not through purity, but through strength. Someday, Jinwoo told his son, this will all be yours. The family, the responsibility, the weight. I'm not afraid, Minjun said. You should be. Fear keeps you sharp, but don't let it paralyze you. Minjun nodded, absorbing his father's words like he always did, carefully, thoughtfully. Years later, when Jinwoo was old and gray, he would sit in the garden with Adana and watch their grandchildren play. Children who carried Korean blood, African blood, and the strength that came from surviving impossible odds. The Park bloodline had survived, not through tradition, not through purity, but through sacrifice, through courage, through one woman's refusal to die in the snow, and through an old grandmother's wisdom, who knew that sometimes, to save a family, you have to break every rule that defined it. Minjun Park stood in the ancestral room, now a young man of 21. He lit incense at his great-grandmother's altar, whispering thanks to Halme Yoon for the life she'd made possible. Behind him, his father's voice. The Lee family wants to meet with you, alone. They say it's important. Minjun turned. His father was older now, gray at the temples, but still formidable. What do they want? I don't know. But you're old enough to find out. Jinwoo's eyes held something Minjun had never seen before. Worry. The world is changing, Minjun. Faster than we can control. New threats, new players. The old rules don't apply anymore. Minjun straightened his shoulders. Then maybe it's time for new rules. Jinwoo smiled, proud and sad at once. Maybe it is. As Minjun walked out to face whatever challenge awaited him, Jinwoo whispered to the empty room, "Guide him, grandmother, the way you guided me." And somewhere, in the space between memory and spirit, an old woman's voice seemed to answer, "He'll be fine. He carries the best of all of us." The Park bloodline continued. Different. Stronger. Unbreakable. A bloodline survives not through purity, but through the courage to become something new. Minjun Park carries 3 legacies now: Korean honor, African strength, and the wisdom of a grandmother who refused to let tradition destroy the future. But every new generation faces its own winter. So tell me, if you were Minjun, would you follow the old ways that nearly destroyed your family? Or would you risk everything to build something different? And would you be strong enough to protect the ones you love when the world demands you choose between honor and survival?